Okay, welcome back to the session. So it is a chromosome 16 alpha genes which you need to remember. Then you have a beta gene which is located on the chromosome 11. That are the two golden numbers. Now, what is the beta thalassemia? Beta chains are deficient, alpha chains are unaffected, and all these excess unemployed unmarried alpha chains, because beta chains marge warme, they damage the RBC membrane, and that is a whole problem in beta thalassemia. Then in alpha thalassemia, decrease of alpha chains and the remaining beta chains form the tetramers, and if the hemoglobin is a beta tetramer, it won't work as efficiently as it works like a alpha 2 beta 2. If it is beta 4, its oxygen binding capacity, oxygen delivering capacity, everything get affected. That's the whole problem. Now, if you look at the alpha thalassemia, clinically it has a wide spectrum, because 4 genes, 4 loci, allelic loci will decide the alpha chain production. There can be 1 loci mutant, 2 loci mutant, 3 loci, or all the 4 loci mutant. If it is only 1 loci mutant, you get an alpha thalassemia which is relatively asymptomatic. But if it is all 4, then intrafetal life only, the fetus will develop hydrops fetalis, as all of you know very well. Now, doctor, in the beta thalassemias, similarly you have 2 kinds, thalassemia major, thalassemia minor. When do you call major? It is also called Cooley's anemia. It is a homozygous beta chain thalassemia. In them, there is a microcytic hypochromic anemia, hepatosplenomegaly, expansion of the marrow space. Ultimately, there is a congestive heart failure due to the persistent anemia that they suffer. So there is a problem in the case of the beta thalassemia. Why there is a hepatosplenomegaly? Because they are having persistently dying RBCs. So only bone marrow cannot be able to compensate. Even extramedullary hematopoiesis should occur, like liver, spleen, everybody should work in the home to run the family. Because the debts left by the dead father are so many that har ek naukri pe nahi gaye to ghar nahi chalega. So there is a problem in beta thalassemia, extramedullary hematopoiesis. As I told you, if the beta chain is missing, HbA doesn't form, but HbF will form. So their HbF is elevated if you do electrophoresis with a low HbA. They will have microcytic hypochromic anemia, and throughout life they require frequent packed RBC transfusions. Now how about thalassemia minor? It is basically heterozygous state. They are relatively asymptomatic, and once more hemoglobin electrophoresis will help you to diagnose. How? A low HbA with a high HbA2 and HbF is what you come across. Usually they do not require treatment, and they are not transfusion dependent, unlike a homozygous state of Cooley's anemia, which is thalassemia major, is what need to be remembered. Now this is a classical example of severe chronic anemia in a thalassemic individual in whom the bone marrow, not only of the long bones, even calvarial bones is capable of hematopoiesis, that has virtually thickened because of too much of hematopoiesis within the marrow of it, and that lead to a prominent forehead. Of course, if you check your classmates, 5 to 10 guys may have prominent forehead, don't suspect thalassemia. I still remember when we were having this discussion in MD, while I was in MD, general medicine and hematology, we were just casually having a discussion about thalassemia, how does it present, everything. Suddenly one of our juniors who is in MD first year that guy slightly has a prominent forehead, and we said चलो electrophoresis करेंगे, free में आएगा. Electrophoresis करे तो his HbA was less and HbFA2 were high. It was actually a case of beta thalassemia minor. So much panicked. क्या करना, next क्या करना? But he is a minor. He didn't require any transfusions or anything throughout the life. He is now a very top, he later turned out to be a politician. He is now a politician in Adilabad, in addition to being a doctor. So that's how doctor, sometimes another guy was discovered with Wilson's disease while we were studying in Davidson Wilson's. All symptoms padke, he said maybe I may be having Wilson and got evaluated with ceruloplasmin levels altered. But he was once more a heterozygous state with no problem at all. Later on he became a pediatrician. Now doctor, you read that novel, Erich Segal's Doctors. It's a beautiful novel. Of course nowadays people are not finding time to read novels. So Erich Segal has written a novel, Doctors, very good novel which you can study in holidays. During MBBS, ultimately when you look after 20 years or 15 years, you will be in different parts of life, and when you look back, there is a big history that you can write at different stages. So doctor, what is the classical feature? That hair-on end appearance of a plain skull radiograph classically in a thalassemia major patient. All these trabeculations are due to that extramedullary hematopoiesis and expanded marrow is what need to be remembered. This is the classical peripheral smear in case of thalassemia. What are the hallmarks of this peripheral smear? Number one, don't you think this cell is smaller? Hence it is microcytic. Then you have a cell of a different shape, which is a marker of poikilocytosis. Then you have got target cells as what you can see here, and the central pallor is expanded, hence they are hypochromic. So hypochromia, target cells, poikilocytosis and microcytosis, that characterizes what is called as a thalassemia's peripheral smear is what need to be remembered. Because tomorrow when you write a short answer on thalassemia, examiner expects what are the peripheral smear buzzwords: poikilocytosis, target cells and microcytosis, hypochromic picture. There is a thalassemia intermedia where both the beta globin genes are involved, but they are not yet transfusion dependent, and always a very important rule: any microcytic hypochromic patient not responding to iron therapy, don't hesitate to send electrophoresis and get that the values are normal. You try to err on investigation, no problem, but you need to evaluate. So you need to order and rule out alpha and beta thalassemia, say microcytic hypochromic anemia not responding to iron therapy. But what is a very common cause people don't respond to iron therapy? After starting iron therapy, vomitings, constipation, everything, abdominal pain, I don't want to take, I don't want to come back, all these problems will be there. After ruling out all those problems of non-compliance, you should evaluate and think of thalassemia. Now doctor, alpha thalassemias, in them there can be silent carriers, only one gene out of 4 affected. They are asymptomatic, normal HB, normal hematocrit, no treatment needed. Then you have alpha thalassemia trait where 2 alpha loci are affected. They have a mild microcytic hypochromic anemia, they don't need any treatment. Then you have 3 alpha loci affected, which is called HbH disease, and typically they will have hemolysis, microcytic hypochromic anemia, and typically they will also show the presence of splenomegaly, and sometimes you may end up in doing splenectomy in these people. If all the 4 loci get affected, then that lead to hydrops fetalis, and out of all this doctor, hydrops is most dangerous condition which lead to intrauterine life may mortality to the fetus. Okay, doc. When do you call hemoglobin H disease? 3 loci affected. Then what will be the composition? You will have predominantly beta chains intact but alpha chains underproduced. So what will happen to all that beta tetramers which form? They will typically convert themselves into hemoglobin H and reflect in the form of hinge bodies which give that golf ball appearance, it is called as. In hemoglobin H disease you find hinge bodies which are nothing but the beta tetramers because of a diminished production of alpha due to the 3 alpha gene loci mutations is what need to be remembered. Once more, this is another example of a microcytic hypochromic hinge body containing hemoglobin H disease peripheral smear. Then comes the next important entity after thalassemias. In the microcytic anemias, you have sideroblastic anemia. What's the problem in these people? There is an abnormality in the iron metabolism of the RBC in sideroblastic anemia. Iron need to get incorporated into protoporphyrin for the protoporphyrin to convert into porphyrin to form the globin, heme. So if the patient receives chloramphenicol, INH, alcohol, some collagen vascular diseases, some neoplasias like myelodysplastic syndromes, they are all the acquired causes where iron incorporation into the protoporphyrin doesn't occur, and that lead to development of sideroblastic anemia is what you have to ultimately remember. So how do you diagnose this condition? Serum iron levels will be elevated, ferritin levels are also elevated, TIBC is normal, and if you take a bone marrow sample, ringed sideroblasts will be discovered. So that's how you diagnose. But sideroblastic anemia also is one of the important differential diagnoses for microcytic anemias. Iron deficiency, anemia of chronic disease, thalassemia, sideroblastic. But sideroblastic may iron level is elevated, not diminished, and ferritin level is elevated, not diminished, and TIBC is normal, not elevated, unlike iron deficiency is what need to be remembered. Some people have a genetic congenital sideroblastic, but a good number have a acquired form. Always acquired form is something that should bother you a lot. Okay, doc?